Hi, everyone. I'm super excited you are here tonight. We are having our MoonWalk. For those of you who are just dipping your toe in, big welcome. And for those of you who have been moonwalking for a few months, so glad you're here tonight. Welcome. If you have any questions or comments along the way, please feel free to chime in. We're recording this call for future moonwalkers, and we're going to run about 60 minutes tonight. And my intention, my kavanah, is to give you some of the roots of the Jewish calendar and really contextualize where we are in the year in order to give us all roots and foundation and a real sense of orientation of where we are in the larger cycle of time, both historically, agriculturally, spiritually, and as a people. And whether you're Jewish or not, we're all people, so it's tools for everyone. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually begin with a ritual. I'm going to light a candle to bring in some fire. We talked about the moon and this time being about historically when in Jerusalem the first crescent was visible. The way that was announced was people would come and witness the moon. They would witness that very fresh, tiny crescent, and then go and testify in front of what's called the Beit Din, so the court system, and say, we saw the new crescent, the new month, Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month, the head of the moon is here. And then that testimony, if it was sort of confirmed by multiple witnesses, at least two, then a bonfire was lit on the hills, and so on and so forth. Bonfires from hill to hill in the land were lit in order to announce the moon. So it's with some of that fire that we will go ahead and make our own. And if you have a candle at home, invite you to make some fire. And there's no blessing for this, in case you were wondering. It's a new ritual. So it's bringing already a lot of illumination, a lot of beauty, a lot of light, and I think I'll place that up here so we can set that fire on our hilltop to announce tonight and our gathering, our virtual moonwalk gathering. And specifically tonight is not a Rosh Chodesh. I picked the first Tuesday of every month because it's easy to remember. But tonight is actually the 26th of the Hebrew month of Adar, and it's Adar Bet, which means it's Adar number 2. This year is quite special in that there are two months of Adar. There are 12 months of the Jewish calendar and our, I think it's Gregorian calendar, but occasionally an additional 13th month is added to the Hebrew calendar, which is a lunar solar calendar, in order to keep rhythm with the agricultural calendar and our holiday calendar. So we're in that second month of Adar. And for those of you who were with us last month, we spoke about the tikkun, or the property, the element of healing of the month of Adar being about simcha, being about joy. And the Gemara says that when Adar enters, so does simcha, so does joy, and joy actually increases. Misha nichnas Adar marbim besimcha, that when Adar enters, simcha increases. So my first question to all of those who are moonwalkers is, we left off with the with that idea of Adar being about our joy and expanding joy, and the Gemara actually saying that when Adar that things planted in Adar actually have sort of enhanced opportunity and enhanced possibility for fortune and abundance. And so I left us all with the question of, what is it that we wanted to plant during this month of Adar, and how can we kind of nurture that idea of Adar being a fertilizer and really like a hotbed, a greenhouse for what we might plant, that it should grow abundantly. And we left with a ritual charge or invitation, actually, to get an object and place that object in a sacred place and have that be our altar space, to whatever degree folks were comfortable with. So my first sort of reflective question for you is to take a few moments, and I'll leave some time for all of us to reflect, to take a few moments and think about, in this month of Adar, actually we've had two, so this month of March and even a bit before that, what seeds have you planted? And how have they grown? And relative to this concept of joy in particular, have there been joy seeds that you can kind of trace back and see, according to the month, how those might have germinated or begin to root or even to sprout? So I'll give us a few moments to either you can meditate on that or do a little bit of journaling. I invite you moonwalkers to sort of bring whether it's a piece of paper or a special moon journal, so that we can kind of track our journey. And if you see me leaning down, I'm going to be doing this exercise with you. So the first question of inquiry is reflecting back on the month of Adar. Have there been joy seeds that you have planted, and how have they begun to germinate or even sprout? And can just take that in and do some reflection.
Hello, this is Sue.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're just in the middle of a bit of reflection and meditation on the joy seeds that we planted last month. So if you want to just take a few minutes to reflect, I began to kind of remind us where we were last month, and invite us into a few minutes of just reflection on what is it that we planted over this past month, and what joy seeds have been germinating for us during this past month of Adar. So you can feel free to make a few notes or just close your eyes and reflect of some joy seeds that have that you've encountered during this past month, and then we'll come back in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Great. So there's some people online just listening in. There's some people actually joining us on computer or by phone. If you have desire to speak up at any point, please feel free. If you want to mute yourself on your phone or by a computer when you're not speaking, you're welcome to do that. Everyone's on unmute, so you can speak at any point. Does anyone want to share any joy seeds that have been planted during this past month that you want to bring to the group or to the conversation? Anything that, looking back, you say, "Wow, that was a real Adar joy seed that I planted." We'll leave a bit of a pause if anyone wants to jump in. Okay, so we'll continue on. That tonight might be more of listening. Some folks have just said, give us more. So I'm just going to give you more and jump in at any point along the way. So that's where we're coming out of. We're coming out of this month of Adar, when joy increased. And what we're heading into is quite exciting. This weekend, we're starting a new Hebrew month. It'll be Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the new month of Nisan, and it sounds like the car, but but it's a little bit different. Nisan actually in Hebrew means bud, like rosebud or a flower bud. And this month is really the burst of spring, and the qualities associated with it, according to Kabbalah, according to the mystical tradition. I'm gonna share those with you now, and those will really orient our conversation tonight, and some of the practices we discuss and teachings we go over. So we're heading into the full sun time of the year, which obviously we can feel. Well, I guess if you're in New England, they just got a weird snow blast again. But those of us on the West Coast, and for sure in Israel, we are able to sense spring just getting juicier and juicier. The buds are beginning to burst open, flowers and vegetables, and even the air is quite fertile and active. There's an angel associated with each Hebrew month, and the angel for the month of Nisan is the angel Uriel, which is the angel of light and of revelation. And that angel actually, it's said that we always have 4 angels surrounding us, and Uriel is the angel that is in front of us, the angel of light. of Or, and it's actually Uriel, the light of God. And so that's a wonderful meditation in and of itself, is to imagine this month and tonight, really having that sense of Uriel, that light of God before us and in front of us. And those of you who are seeing me on the video, you'll see I lit this candle right over my shoulder here to invoke those bonfires that we spoke of, that were lit at the beginning of a new moon, but also, we can think of it tonight as Uriel sort of stepping into our view and beginning to light our path in front of us. And then the midah, or the attribute that's associated with this month, is the attribute of balance. In Hebrew, it's called tiferet, and it's actually right over our hearts. So you can, if you'd like, put your hands over your hearts, and that is where tiferet dwells, and it is really that indwelling sense of balance and harmony and compassion. On our left and our right is strength and goodness, and in that center space, that place of, in Hebrew called tiferet, is that place of integration and of balance. So that's a beautiful sort of physical property related to this month, that we have this light in front of us, and then physically inside of us, this is the time for that integration and for that indwelling. And again, we think of the name of the Hebrew month, Nisan, meaning bud. That is where that bud lies, whether it's our heart or behind our hearts, or just right at our heart center. That is where that bud of Nisan is coming from. So I want to give us an opportunity to just close our eyes and find our seat for just a few minutes, and take one of those images, whether it's the fresh wind or the sun of this month, that angel Uriel in front of us, that sense of tiferet, compassion, integration right over our heart. Just going to take a minute or so and just feel into that sense of Nisan, that sense of bud in our bodies. And you might, if visualizations are helpful, you might think of your favorite bud, whatever flower it might be, or and see that in your mind's eye, or see that resting right over your heart. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And does anyone want to share? I know Sue's on. Do you have any anything you'd like to share about that meditation? How was that for you?
Interesting, but I'm not really a meditator.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thanks for trying it. Good. And anyone else feel like sharing? Okay. I see some chats coming in. Someone saying, loved it. I am a rosebud. It's awesome. Great. And another person wrote in, I'm coming up to the ground, but still underground. Interesting. Okay, great. So, a wide range of experiences, trying some of these tools and techniques out in order to, get a sense of what this Hebrew month could bring into our life, into our awareness. So, Nisan is a special month in that it's considered one of the 4 new years, actually. It's one of the 4 Rosh Hashanah experiences according to the Talmud, and it's the Rosh Hashanah of coronation, and it's the time when kings were counted as having reigned another year. So it's interesting to note that, we think of just having one Rosh Hashanah, but in fact there are, according to the Talmud, there are 4. And Nisan, the month that we're in now, is considered one of those high holiday moments. And they say it's often this association with kings and coronation is because it's in the month of Nisan that the holiday of Pesach, of Passover, falls. And Passover is all about freedom and liberation. And for a king to have the sense of cycle, of ruling another year, a king must have had an understanding of Passover and the sense of liberation and of ruling a people and of freeing a people. So if that's a helpful association for you of thinking, this month is about royalty and about coronation and freedom and really stepping into a sense of leadership, perhaps, or of reign, as far as taking power of our lives and our choices, and tapping into that ancestral cycle. And to get us more connected with the sense of Passover, which is coming very, very fast. We went from Purim, this holiday of everything being flipped upside down, and the role of Esther and Mordecai as bringing about miracles and radical change. And we go from there to Passover, where it's very much about God bringing about radical change and liberation. So we're going from the human, and Esther and a Mordecai being at the helm of making radical change, to here we are tapping back into the role of God as miracle maker and as reality changer, which is, people have different associations with God. For some people, God is that miracle worker. And for other people, it is, more of the Purim God, where it is about the human engagement and the human action bringing about change. And that'd be an interesting philosophical conversation for us to get into at some point. But Passover, we step into the realm of miracles and of tremendous faith. We have these people that, according to Torah, were enslaved 420 years. So every generation had died out that had ever known freedom. So there was no sort of internal roadmap for what freedom might have even been like. And it was those people that then stood marched to the sea, having that sea being closed in front of them, stood there and prayed for a miracle, and then began to walk through that sea. So it's a very compelling narrative, and really, if this is a time for you of calling out for not just miracles, but being met by God, being carried by God's hand, really invite you into that prayer space, or to call out to God. It says very clearly in the Torah that, it wasn't until the Israelites called out to God, they screamed and they wailed and they called out. There was nothing silent about them. They kind of moaned out to God, that God in some way literally heard their cries. So it's a very, very profound image of, in scholarship we call it theurgy, that there is this kind of rubber band relationship with God, and that in fact God is both seeking us and we are seeking God. And for some people, that's a very compelling concept, and one that they actually relate to in their relationship with God, of calling out to God and having God meet them. So it's in this month of Nisan that we will find Pesach, and this is a rebirth. It's a very different birth than Rosh Hashanah, which is more of, an intellectual soul accounting holiday. Passover is, they say, it's a birth that draws us out of ourselves. So I'll just, say that one more time so we can really sink into that. It's a birth that draws us out of ourselves. I very much think of that image of Moses and Miriam and the Israelites standing at the sea, and in some way for them to have that experience of that sea parting, whether historically it happened or not, they had to, in some ways, come out of themselves. They had to surrender to something more significant, to something larger than themselves. So, my next question for us to consider, and I'll give us a few moments to do some writing or meditating about it. But my question is, what is the birth or rebirth that you could, that you're hoping for yourself, or your family, or your community this Passover? What sort of bud could open up that would really make a difference, that would give you a sense of, being able to see that sea part and begin to walk through? What opening would really make a difference for you this Passover? And we'll spend a few minutes there in reflection or writing, meditation. So what is the birth? What is the opening that would really make a difference for you this Passover, this spring season? If something could open up in your life, what would that be? And I'll repeat that phrase, which I find quite powerful, that the Passover is a birth that draws us out of ourselves. Okay.
Well, I do have a comment on this one.
Great.
It would be, for me personally, it's an opportunity to travel and to see other places and the cultures and to realize how blessed we are in the lives that we have. So just to appreciate.
That's beautiful. That's definitely a birth, and it's a birth outside, drawing you out of ourselves to see the world through different eyes, and eyes of appreciation. Nice. So that's, this month is about, and I think that's a wonderful image, that idea of travel, because we come back then to Uriel and that light in front of us. We can almost imagine Uriel being kind of a headlight in front of us that is drawing us forth into the world, to see and to appreciate and to realize how blessed we are. One of the central teachings of the Passover Seder is the song and the essence of Dayenu, which means, it would have been enough. It would have been enough had God just brought us out. It would have been enough had God just given us the Torah. It would have been enough. And each one of these historical moments, we say to ourselves, Dayenu, that would have been enough. And I often feel like, one of the central teachings and practices of this time of year is that awareness of Dayenu. It's enough, and it is abundant. So thanks for sharing that, Sue. So that's the energy of this month, this time of rebirth and of spring, and a central figure that really embodies that is Miriam. And we have so much imagery in the story of Passover of the sea, and it's really juxtaposed strongly with the desert, because we wandered in the desert, we were slaves in the desert, building pyramids, whatever it might have been. You can just kind of imagine the dustiness of that, and then the stark contrast when we walk to the sea. And so Miriam, her name means actually bitter water, Mar-Yam. Mar is bitterness, like maror, and yam is sea. So her name is bitter water, which is a very, in the Torah, everything has significance, pregnant with significance. And Miriam, speaking of pregnant, Miriam, just to give her family tree, Miriam is Moses' sister, and Miriam was the one who stood at the edge and watched over Moses when he was put in the basket in the river, and then Miriam sort of guided Moses to be rescued by Pharaoh's daughter. So Miriam has all sorts of connection to water and to prophecy. Actually, she's one of our Jewish prophetesses, which is a very high title and figure within Torah. And Miriam was said to actually, during the wandering years of the Israelites, everywhere that Miriam went, wells sprung up around her. So she is the water barrier. She is the woman at the well. She's the woman of the well spring, and very illustrative, I think, of the sense of Passover and Nisan being about birth and of buds and of fertility and vibrancy and tremendous growth through the waters. Just as we came through the waters, Miriam becomes this symbol of a water traveler who creates waves and creates wells wherever she is. So I wanted to share with you a beautiful poem by a poet named Barbara Hollander. And she imagines Miriam as just full of water. Actually, Miriam herself as being kind of made of liquid. And it said that, around her was, even her voice was almost like liquid, and that people would drink from her footprints, which I think is just a beautiful image, right? That everywhere Miriam walked, there were sort of divots underneath her feet. And because they were in the wilderness, that was where the water would spring up, was where and when Miriam walked. So I want to share with you this poem. Due to the merits of Miriam, in Hebrew we call that the zchut, the merit, a mysterious well created on the eve of the first Sabbath accompanied the children of Israel in the desert. So you can begin to imagine this, this woman. Again, she had that tambourine. Remember when everybody else was packing their bowl of dough, Miriam grabbed her tambourine. So there she is with her tambourine, and everywhere around her is that well, those footprints of water. So the poem is, the well followed her everywhere, like a lover easing us to rest, springing from hidden places in our wanderings. Always we were thirsty. Angered by our wailing, she'd stamp her feet. Even from the pools of her heel prints, we drank. Once in anguish, she beat the rocks with her bare hands, again and again, weeping. Water gushed, cleansing her blood, soaking her hair, her robe. She cupped her hands, rinsed her mouth, spat. She splashed and she played, laughing. We filled our bellies. She was the one we followed, who knew each of us by name. Healing rose from her touch as drink, for the deep as song from her throat. She was the well. In our hearts, we call her not Miriam, bitter sea, but Mayim, water. So I want to give us a few moments actually to take this image in and do some reflection and contemplation of who is your Miriam, and it could be perhaps how you are Miriam, but particularly this year, who has been your water carrier and your well bringer? Who has walked those footprints where it's out of those footprints you could drink from the waters of life? So we'll do do a few minutes of reflecting on our Miriam. And to share again that verse from Barbara Hollander's poem, Miriam's Well, about Miriam. She was the one we followed, who knew each of us by name. Healing rose from her touch, as drink from the deep, as song from her throat. She was the well. In our hearts, we called her not Miriam, bitter sea, but Mayim, water. So anybody want to share? I'll just listen for your thoughts and comments and read from the chat coming in. Someone commented that their grandmother is their Miriam, cooking matzo ball soup. My bubby is my Miriam. So beautiful. And someone else commented that they're trying to become more Miriam-like, more fluid, but it is really hard. I agree. I agree. That's a wonderful, that idea of, I love that you're taking it to, as almost an archetype of saying Miriam as that fluidity, as being a real valuable quality to emulate. That's great. So another quality of Miriam, and I think it's very clear that it's related with this sense of water and of the parting of the sea. A quality of Miriam that I want to bring to the forefront is Miriam as a healer. When Miriam became sick, she was sent out of the camps, and actually the wells began to dry up. And it was that point that Moses gathered the people of Israel around to pray on Miriam's behalf. And the prayer was El Na Rafana La. And it's one of the most simplest direct prayers we have in all of Torah. El meaning God, na is please, rifana la, please heal her. It's with an emphatic now. And this is a chant that is done in many communities. El na rifana la, el na rifana la. And it's, every time it's done, I feel like we are cultivating and calling upon Miriam as a healer. But I think it's such a beautiful image of, here actually Miriam was in need of healing, and she becomes a warrior for healing that we now pray through for the healing of others. And there's a teaching that says, even when the well was gone, and this is from the Babylonian Talmud in the section on Shabbat, they say that the well can still be found to this day in the waters of the Sea of Galilee. And then teach that every Saturday night, Miriam's well moves through all the waters of the world, bringing healing to those who are ill and suffering. And in modern times, some place a cup of fresh water on the Seder table in honor of Miriam. And this is what we know of today as Kos Miriam, or the cup, Miriam's cup. And it's, has lots of contemporary symbolism and association. Some people say it's sort of the counter cup to Elijah the prophet's cup of wine, that Miriam has this cup of water, symbolic of her being the water and the well bearer while we were traveling in the desert. But I love this association also with healing, and with Miriam as being a healer and a priestess, and pairing her also, keeping her in that conversation with Elijah. Elijah is the prophet and the protector of children, and here Miriam is almost the midwife or the prophetess of healing and of life. She, in fact, watched over Moses to make sure that he became our teacher and prophet and redeemer coming out of slavery. So we have this really interesting dialogue between Elijah and Miriam, even at the Seder table, which I think is fascinating. So we are, we have about 10 minutes left. I just want to check and see if anyone has questions or thoughts, and then I'm going to give us a ritual practice and a few follow-up items. There's one question coming on the chat. It's about Uriel. Is Uriel a prophet? So Uriel is, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of the call, Uriel is an angel. Jewish tradition has lots of angels, and Uriel is the angel of light, of Or, like O-R, which is light in Hebrew, and Uriel is the light of God. And this month of Nisan is associated with that particular angel and that quality of light. And Uriel, of the four angels, Michael is on our right. Gavriel is on our left. Raphael is behind us, and Uriel is in front of us. And so I mentioned that as one of the qualities of this month of Nisan is this element of light in front of us. So that's who Uriel is. any other questions coming, or thoughts, ideas? Okay, so we've talked about a few, big concepts tonight. Tonight was very thick, so I hope your head is spinning a little bit in a good way, and your heart is spinning. Just to kind of review where we've come tonight, and then give us a next couple steps. We talked about tonight as being a kickoff to the month of Nisan, which means bud in Hebrew. And this new month begins Saturday night. So you can look for the sliver of the moon this Saturday night. And that is the announcement of the new month of Nisan. And the quality, some of the qualities of Nisan are Uriel, of that light in front of us. That sense of bud, of ripeness and impending bursting of life and beauty, and the quality, or the where that manifests is in the face. We call it the divine face, one of the aspects of God called Tiferet, which means balance and integration. So again, you can enter here at your own level. No need to worry about the Hebrew. If you just think about this month is about a bud, and about light, and about integration or balance right over our hearts. That's the sort of feeling of this month. And then I began to share with you a little bit more about this idea of rebirth, and of Passover, the holiday within this month, of being about a birth that draws us out of ourselves. And I really want you to, highlight that, or write it down, or, just contemplate it a little bit further. And then we spoke about Miriam as both the water carrier and the healer. And I gave you, one concept of, you can have that kos Miriam, that cup of water at your Seder table. That's a really nice way to bring some of these teachings into your Seder table, to have that cup of water. And sometimes I pass that cup around and ask people to place in that cup anyone who might be in need of healing, or to just hold, or even add a drop from their cup of a blessing for healing that they would like to make for someone in their life. But really to take advantage of that cup on your Seder table as a well, as our contemporary Miriam's well, that source of healing. And I also want to leave you with, not only do we have Miriam to marinate on and in, but also the imagery of Uriel. And I'm glad someone asked a question about it. This light in front of us, really guiding us forth. That could be a really powerful meditation tool, or even just imagery, before you're going to bed at night, or when you wake up in the morning, to imagine that light guiding you forth, guiding us, into what is becoming, like a headlight in the dark. Just, it's very, very powerful. You think about, how could we drive without those headlights? We wouldn't. And yet that headlight, we can't see the end of the road, but we can see 5 feet and 10 feet, and we keep going. So the role of Uriel as being that headlight beckoning us forward and accompanying us. And then lastly, that idea of Tiferet, of this month being about integration and that bud over our heart space. It's definitely a wonderful and ready image and I think, a centering place for us to imagine, this is the time to integrate. It might be spring and everything is sort of bursting open, but it's opening from that place of integration and that place of balance and compassion. So if that's a helpful technique or tool. And I just, before we hop off, I'd like for each of us to just choose one. I think it's, in community, it's helpful to choose one of these tools. So it might be Miriam, it might be Uriel, or it might be this idea of balance and Tiferet, integration. I just want to encourage us all to just kind of pick one that might be your focusing place or your return to over the next few weeks and the holiday of Passover coming up. So I'll just give us all a moment to just think, is it Miriam and her well or healing? Is it Uriel and that light in front of us? That sense of bud over our heart and balance? So someone wrote in, Uriel for me. Great. And someone else, healing. Right. Sue, what about for you?
I just like the idea of rebirth.
Rebirth
is very exciting to say we can all begin again. We can all look at things differently. We can all have more hope. We can all recharge, as you say.
Beautiful. I love that. Recharge, have hope. Yeah, hope. I'm so glad you brought that up because, it is that hope of, I think about it every time I go to the ocean of, you stand there and you imagine instead of, a broad horizon you can look across, the Israelites just saw a wall of water, a wall straight up in front of them. And somehow there was hope that opened up, whether it was metaphorically or spiritually or historically, who knows, but they had this fierce hope. And that in some ways, also kind of echoes Nisan, that idea of a bud. You always think of like, wow, how does a bud, open up? Just have that hope to open, but it just pops open. So beautiful. So we'll come back next month, and we will have started Passover. We'll be deep into Nisan, and we'll do some more learning there. I should have in the next couple of weeks some more opportunities to engage in Passover and ritual and preparing, so look out for those. And I also just want to flag one really special opportunity to join me on a 20-minute quick phone call on April 14th to tell me about your prayer life or lack thereof. But who is it, or how is it, or when is it that you connect to spirit? So I invite you to sign up for one of those 20-minute slots. A few of you have already jumped on, which is great. So just hop on a quick, totally free call with me for 20 minutes, and I would love to begin that conversation with you. And I thank you so much for being with me tonight, and we'll see you next moon. And between now and then, that crescent starting on Saturday night will grow and grow and grow to become full during Passover. So I wish you many, many blessings as you head out of Egypt to the edge of the sea. And I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you. Bye.
Many blessings.